Calvinism really is a hot button issue today, especially as it's compared and contrasted to Arminianism. And for that reason, there's often a lot of misunderstanding and even intentional distortion of it. For example, sometimes people say Calvinists don't believe that God really loves the world, or that individuals are they believe Calvinists believe individuals are robots who don't actually have to believe. There's a lot of distortions out there about what Calvinists actually believe. And not a single Calvinist I know, let alone myself, believe any of those things. So what is Calvinism? Before we answer the heart of the question, what is Calvinism? Well, basically Calvinism is a belief, a big view of God's sovereignty, specifically how it's used mostly today in regards to the process of salvation. Right? A big view of God's sovereignty in the process of how we are saved. And it's normally summarized with the acronym TULIP, with each of those letters referring to a core belief of God's role, or man's role, within the process of salvation. And the T stands for total depravity. Total depravity is the idea that man is totally depraved. He's totally marked by sin. It doesn't mean man's as bad as he possibly can be, but rather that the whole totality of him is tainted by sin, and that we are therefore spiritually dead and unable to save ourselves or to come to God on our own apart from Him doing some work of grace. The U stands for unconditional election, and this is where it gets interesting, as both Calvinists and Arminians both affirm election. They just define it slightly differently, and the stress there is on the unconditional nature of election. That Calvinists believe that when God chooses us, when He elects His people, He does so not based upon anything within ourselves, not based upon any of our own good works. Rather, it's wholly of grace. It's wholly without condition. It's wholly based upon who God is and not man. The most controversial belief of Calvinism is really the L, the limited atonement, that Christ died to, and specifically in a special way, just for His people. That He effected the atonement. He died to pay for the sins of just His people in some special way. And that can bring a lot of different debate and discussion into the equation. And the I is irresistible grace, that when God calls us, when He offers His grace, when He draws us to Himself, God always gets what He wants. God is not ineffective in bringing about salvation. And the final is the perseverance of the saints, that we are kept, that the saints are kept, or they're preserved by the strength of God, by the power of God, not by our own works or by our own power of believing, but it is God who keeps us, and therefore every saint will be finally kept in the end. So that's kind of a summary of what Calvinism really is. And Calvinism is this belief in the inability of man to save himself, and that God is sovereign over the process of salvation, and that He regenerates us. He moves first. He does the first move. He regenerates us, and then we believe. It is not a denial that we have to believe on our own, but rather it is that we believe in response to God's sovereign grace in our lives. So what is Riverview's position on Calvinism? Well, Riverview really doesn't have an official position on Calvinism. We have people in our church who are Calvinists, we have people who are Arminian, and we have people who have no idea what the discussion is really about. It is not a core tenet of the faith. We do not believe in breaking fellowship over disagreements over Calvinism or Arminianism. Our staff is mostly Calvinistic, and our people are, as I said, is a mixed bag. And our staff does not force it down anyone's throat, and we do not require that everyone believe exactly as we believe. But we do think that it is an important discussion to have. It's a secondary issue, yes, but secondary issues are important. And Christians on any issue should be people who are seeking the truth. We seek it charitably. We seek with grace with one another, understanding that our unity in the primary things of the faith, who Jesus is and what He has done on the cross. We understand all of that, but we do want to be people who seek the truth. It is better to be right on these things than to be wrong. So we are all for open dialogue on this issue, and it is something that we should search the Scriptures for.